Blade wasn't supposed to work. A bankrupt studio, an obscure comic character nobody knew, a director and lead actor who stopped speaking to each other halfway through filming, but somehow, it launched the entire modern superhero era. Here are 20 weird facts about Blade you didn't know, and they're stranger than the movie itself. Fact 1. The studio was literally days from bankruptcy. New Line Cinema was broke, hemorrhaging money, on the verge of complete collapse. They gambled everything on an obscure vampire hunter most people had never heard of, $45 million, their entire future, riding on Wesley Snipes, wearing sunglasses, and a leather coat. If Blade flopped, New Line would have ceased to exist. The executives greenlit a film they didn't understand, because they had nothing left to lose. Fact 2. Marvel sold Blade for the price of a used car. $25,000. That's what Marvel got for Blade's film right. They were so desperate in the mid-90s, they were selling characters like a garage sale. Zero faith that anyone cared about a half-vampire hunter. The contract was so bad that Marvel made almost nothing from the box office. No creative control, no back-end point. Years later, executives called it the worst business decision in company history. Fact 3. The script was being written while they were filming. Imagine showing up to work and your entire job description has changed. That was Blade. David Goyer's script was being rewritten during production. Wesley Snipes would get new dialogue that contradicted scenes they'd already shot. The editors had to piece together a coherent film from fractured footage, using 3 different script versions. It's a miracle the movie makes any sense at all. Fact 4. The MPA tried to kill it with an NC-17 rating. The blood rave opening almost destroyed the entire film. The ratings board threatened NC-17, the kiss of death for any theatrical release. New Line had to cut and recut, removing shots of blood splashing on ravers' faces, toning down Blade's kills. Even after butchering it, they got the hardest R rating possible. Some countries banned it outright, or cut over 10 minutes of footage. The studio nearly destroyed their own gamble before it even hit theaters. Fact 5. The director was hired because he was cheap. Stephen Norrington didn't get the job because he had vision. He got it because he'd work for scale and could make low-budget films look expensive. The studio didn't trust him. They assigned multiple producers to babysit him constantly. They nearly fired him 3 times during production when he clashed with Wesley Snipes over creative control. He wasn't their first choice. He wasn't even their 10th choice. He was just affordable. Fact 6. Wesley Snipes stopped speaking to the director. Midway through filming, Wesley Snipes became so furious with Stephen Norrington that he literally stopped speaking to him. Not an exaggeration. He refused to acknowledge the director existed. For weeks, Snipes would only communicate through post-it notes, which he signed from Blade. The director had to relay instructions through the cinematographer and producers, while Snipes pretended he was invisible. Imagine trying to finish a $45 million movie when your star won't even look at you. Fact 7. Snipes tried to get Stephen Dorff fired mid-shoot. Wesley didn't just ignore the director, he went to war with his co-star. He clashed so hard with Stephen Dorff that he lobbied producers to replace him during filming. Snipes felt Dorff was too young and inexperienced to play a credible villain. Their scenes lacked chemistry because Snipes would refuse to do takes with Dorff present. The crew had to film them separately and edit them together. They're barely in the same room for most of their confrontations. Fact 8. Chris Christopherson was drunk for most of his scenes. Chris Christopherson, playing Whistler, was allegedly drinking heavily during production. He'd show up to set intoxicated. The crew scheduled his scenes early in the morning before he'd had too much to drink. Some of Whistler's gruff, slurred line deliveries, not acting. That was genuine. Snipes reportedly threatened to quit if Christopherson wasn't managed better. The grizzled mentor was method acting with whiskey. Fact 9. The stunt coordinator quit after a physical fight. The original stunt coordinator walked off set after a heated physical altercation with Wesley Snipes. They clashed over fight choreography. Snipes, a trained martial artist, wanted authentic martial arts. The coordinator wanted Hollywood wire work. The argument got so aggressive that security had to intervene. A replacement was hired within 48 hours. The production was hemorrhaging crew members faster than vampires in sunlight. Fact 10. Udo Kier's torture scene burned him for real. During the scene where vampire archivist Dragonetti gets tortured with sunlight, the UV effects were so intense, they actually burned Udo Kier's skin. He didn't tell anyone until after the take, because he's a method actor, who believed the pain would make the performance authentic. He required medical treatment for minor burns. The crew adjusted the lighting for subsequent takes. Kier literally suffered for his art, and nobody asked him to. Fact 11. Some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill was improvised. Blade's most iconic line wasn't in the script. Wesley Snipes improvised it during the final confrontation with Frost. The crew had no idea what it meant. Norrington kept it, because test audiences went absolutely crazy for it. Even today, Snipes refuses to explain what the metaphor actually means. He's given multiple interviews where people ask him to break down, and he just smiles and says nothing. It's the film's signature moment, and it was a complete accident.
Fact 12. The blood rave used real sprinkler systems. Illegally, the opening blood rave scene was filmed in a real Los Angeles nightclub. Production illegally rigged the building's fire suppression system to spray blood, a mixture of fake blood and water. They never got proper permits for this modification. The club's owner didn't discover the tampering until after filming wrapped. He sued New Line for damages to the sprinkler system. The most iconic scene in the movie was literally a crime in progress. Fact 13. Wesley Snipes actually cut himself multiple times during sword fight sequences. Snipes accidentally cut himself at least 4 times with steel prop blades. He insisted on doing his own stunts without sufficient safety protocols. In one scene you can actually see blood on his hand that's his real blood, not a special effect. The insurance company threatened to shut down production if he didn't use stunt doubles. Snipes ignored them. He was going to be Blade, even if it killed him. Fact 14. The vampire ash effect was a complete accident. The iconic effect of vampires disintegrating into ash when killed, discovered by accident. The crew was testing different ways to depict vampire deaths when a pyrotechnics test went wrong. A powder ignition created the swirling ash effect. It looked so cool that David Goyer rewrote death scenes specifically to showcase this accident. The film's signature visual element was never planned. It was a mistake that became magic. Fact 15. The hospital massacre was shot guerrilla style. The sequence where Blade attacks the vampire blood bank in a hospital was filmed without permission. They shot guerrilla style in a real hospital's closed window. Production didn't have full approval to film there and definitely didn't have permission for the violent content they were shooting. Hospital administrators discovered crew members smuggling fake blood and weapons through service corridors. They threatened to call the police. Producers had to make emergency payments to smooth things over. Hollywood chaos meets actual trespassing. Fact 16. Stephen Norrington never directed another major film. Despite Blade's massive success, Stephen Norrington's experience was so traumatic that he essentially quit Hollywood. His feud with Snipes broke him. He directed one more film, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, in 2003, another nightmare production, then retired from filmmaking entirely. He's openly stated that working with Wesley Snipes on Blade broke him. $130 million box office hit, and the director never worked again. Fact 17. Blade saved the entire superhero genre. Before Blade's surprise success, studios considered comic book films box office poison. Batman and Robin killed the genre. In Blade proved that dark, R-rated superhero content could be profitable. Marvel executives credit it as the film that gave them courage to launch the MCU. Without Blade's $131 million worldwide gross, there's no Iron Man, no Marvel Studios as we know it. Wesley Snipes in a leather coat saved superhero movies. Fact 18. The film created a real vampire hunter subculture. Blade inspired people who genuinely believed they were vampire hunters. Law enforcement in several cities reported incidents of individuals carrying weapons and hunting members of goth subcultures. At least 3 criminal cases in the early 2000s involved defendants who claimed Blade inspired them to hunt vampires. These led to serious assault. A fictional movie spawned real-world violence. The legacy got dark. Fact 19. Wesley refused Blade Defoe unless Norrington was gone. When Blade Defoe was greenlit, Snipes made it contractually explicit. Stephen Norrington could have zero involvement. New Line had to pay Norrington a settlement to relinquish any creative rights. They hired Guillermo del Toro specifically because Snipes approved of him. Snipes later said he would have walked away from $10 million rather than work with Norrington again. The grudge was permanent. Fact 20. The new MCU Blade has been stuck in development hell. When Disney purchased Marvel, they tried to reacquire the rights to produce a new Blade. The legal entanglements were so complex it took nearly 20 years. The new MCU Blade starring Mahershala Ali was announced and has been stuck in development hell ever since. Multiple directors have quit. Scripts have been scrapped. The nightmarish contracts from the 1998 production are still haunting Marvel today. Some curses never die.